We ready?
Yes.
Three, two, one. Hello.
Hello.
How's it going, everybody?
Welcome back.
To What Catholic School Didn't Teach You. My name is Katie.
And I'm Jillian.
How you doing, Jill?
I am doing good. Living the dream.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, always.
So
Um,
convincing.
I know, right? I think if I just keep telling myself that enough, everything will be
Everything will be
great.
fine.
Fine, either way. I actually had a thought today that I thought I would bring to you in the pod.
Okay. Bring it.
So, so from context for all, I work at Newman University. That is where I went to undergrad. That is where I met my husband, Richard. And that is where I also got married. Fun fact, in COVID in 2020, June 13th, 2020.
The first time.
Round one was there. But before then, I was in college. I was the head sacristan at Newman. So the chapel, Sacred Heart Chapel, was literally my home away from home. I took my interview for the Jesuit Volunteer Corps in the sacristy of the chapel. I had keys to it, so I would just hang out there whenever I wasn't in my dorm room or just needed a place to just be. I was there the whole time, like literally all the time. I just remember it always bringing me so much peace. And you think about places that are holy ground that you just know that when you're in these places, like if you go on a pilgrimage. So a pilgrimage is when you go to a holy place that to a saint or to someone had great significance. Either they lived there or this was a place that they had some conversion or whatnot. So if you did a pilgrimage of my life, Sacred Heart Chapel would be have to be a stop on that pilgrimage because so much of my faith journey has happened there. So much so that the high school that I was working at before Newman, I ran a retreat for the faculty and staff at Newman and stood in that chapel. So this was literally the year, oh, so it was 2019, 2020. So it was the year going into the pandemic. And I stood there and told everyone that this is a special place and to not be afraid to pray big prayers. Don't be afraid to ask God for what it is that you really, really want because prayers are answered here. Because everything that I've ever prayed for in that chapel has happened. 6 months later, 8 months later, I get married in that chapel when the whole world is shut down, when no one's doing anything. This chapel found a way for me to marry the love of my life. And now I get to be there every single day. And I was getting something out of the sacristy today. And I'm standing there, I'm looking at the altar, and I realize I don't know when the last time I sat here and prayed a big prayer and really told God what it is that I want and what it is that's on my heart and what it is that I need to find peace, to get strength, what it is that's next for me in my vocational journey. All those questions that I have swirling in my brain constantly for the last year. I have not once done what I've been telling everyone else to do in this chapel, which is sit there and ask God for what it is that I want. And I was like, how did I find myself here? And I just find it so weird that it's so easy. I find it so easy for me to give advice to other people or to try to find an answer or to try to help them find some type of peace in their life when the coin is flipped and it's for me. I have a very hard time following through with my own advice or for things that I know are going to make myself feel better or be in a better mental health space,
Mm-hmm.
headspace. It's hard. I have like roadblocks up and it's harder for me to push through that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just a thought I had. Just wanted to share it and see what you think about that. If you also struggle with that or
Yeah, I think so. I my biggest holdback, I guess, is how vulnerable it is to do that, you know?
mm-hmm.
There is the aspect of like Julie Roberts in Notting Hill, like I'm just a girl standing in front of my God asking
Mm-hmm.
God to answer this giant prayer.
Yeah.
that I don't know they will answer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, and I, yeah, I guess I also can't tell you the last time I asked God for a big thing. I guess it was Jake,
Mm.
which I got. But I'm so there
Yeah.
there's that fear of like, but what if I
Mm.
don't get it? Like what if I
Right.
ask God for this thing that I think I desperately need or I desperately want or I think is the right thing and then it's not the right thing. And
Mm-hmm.
sure, it's like easy to say like, well, that wasn't God's will or like whatever. That's easy, but there is an emotional side of that where it's like you are still let down. Like just because it wasn't God's will or it wasn't the right timing, you're still let down. It's still disappointing and a lot of times you're still heartbroken about it.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe that comes with grief
Mm.
even. So it's a scary thing to ask God for big things because there's a lot riding on it.
Yeah.
For me, it happens when I don't trust God.
Yeah.
And I don't think that that's true for everybody, but I know it's true for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I never thought of it that way before. And I also think for me too, what I'm seeing now is I am getting some of the things that I am praying for, but I'm still not completely fulfilled. So then what does that mean? Or I still feel like there's more for me to be doing that I don't really
Hmm.
know what that is. So what does that mean? What
Yeah,
does that mean for me that I'm praying the prayers, God's answering them, and I'm still not happy? Am I
I
ever
know.
going to find a place where I'm content? I don't even know what it is anymore that I'm asking for. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
that's another big thing too. I don't even know what it is I'm asking for,
Hmm.
what it is I want, because I thought I did, and it has not worked out a lot of the time. And I
Yeah,
think that distrust in God and also myself that I'm like, I don't even know if I know what I want anymore. I don't know if I have that, if my compass, my moral compass, my
yeah,
whatever you would call it, is working
yeah.
because I'm just don't know.
Your confidence is shook a little bit.
Yeah.
It's so cheesy, but I think of it is so cheesy,
I like
but
cheese. My
I
favorite
know
Scooter.
you're my favorite Scooter. But I think of the Israelites leaving
Hmm.
Egypt and trying to find their way to the promised land. And 40 years in the desert's a long time to be in the desert.
Hmm.
There's a lot that goes into that story, and there's a lot of context in there that I'm not giving right now, but they must have felt the same way, right? Like, what am I doing? Am I even going the right way?
Yeah. Hmm.
Why should I trust? Like, we know that they had these conversations. Like, why should I even trust God at this point? Why should I even trust, Moses at this point? And despite the fact that, there were signs from God every single day, manna from heaven, the clouds, the fire, the tablets, everything, the snake, the
Hmm.
serpent, the statue. Like, I relate so deeply to the Israelites in the desert. I'm sure there are signs every single day of God. I know that there are, and some days I see them and some days I don't,
Hmm.
right? Regardless of whether or not I see the signs, I'm still like, stamping my feet and kicking the dust and like, why should I trust you?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
thinking
absolutely.
I know better and thinking I can do this on my own, and that's absolutely not the case. I'm an idiot, and
Stop it.
like it's a joke.
Don't talk about my friend like that. I know. I'm still thinking about what you said before about the vulnerability that it takes and being afraid to be let down
Hmm.
is a big one. Is a
Yeah.
big one. Yeah. So, well, thank you for that insight. So, if anyone else is struggling, maybe that's what I think that's where I was being called to do. And I did. I sat there and I like, and then like the next day was adoration at Newman. So I went to adoration and I brought my notebook because I like to journal in adoration and I made a list. I was like, all right, dude, here we go.
Hmm.
Jesus, I'm gonna tell you all the things. And I made a bullet pointed list of all the things I would like. And I was like, I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna say the things and you do it that way you want. But now you
Yeah.
know this is what I'm thinking. So if you need that to pray some big prayers, there it is.
And this is a timely conversation. I don't know if you did that on purpose, Jill, but our topic today is young adult ministry.
I
And I
actually didn't
feel
do that on
like
purpose, but
this
it worked
is,
out. Thank you, Jesus.
thank you, sneaky Jesus.
We're going to be talking about young adult faith. Why we think this is an important thing to talk about is because you think about college life. Well, even I'm going to jump back a little bit more. A lot of us, well, I know Katie and I, and it could be your experience as well, grew up in the faith because it was something our families, our parents, our grandparents, whomever taught it to you or created that foundation. You went because you had to, whatever. Then you go to college. This is the first time you are living on your own. And that's the first time where you have that choice. Do you stick with it? Do you not? And Katie and I now work with college students. And I think it's really interesting to see that all play out for them and figure out where they stand. I see a lot of students now who go because they still feel that obligation from their parents to go,
Mhm.
or they get involved in campus ministry and they make friends and their friends take them, or whatever reason, you kind of fall into that community again of going to mass, still trying to take more ownership than you ever had before. And you have that built-in community. Sometimes it's in the same building that you live in. You know, that's one of the greatest things I think about liturgies on a college campus. We really stress come as you are. If you're going to come in your pajamas, fine, do that. I just want you to be there. I just want you to be present in liturgy. So,
Mhm.
however you want to come in that space, great. Then you graduate and you lose that community. You lose that sense of come as you are in the physical sense of going to mass in your pajamas outside of a college campus may look a little weird.
Yeah.
Not like Jesus is judging you, but other people unfortunately might. So now you have to then take another look at your faith and think about, okay, am I going to take the time to find a parish, to get involved in the faith life of that parish? Am I going to raise my children like this? Am I going to find someone who also has these values? And unfortunately, it's a tall order to find a parish that you feel connected to. A lot of times you see, unfortunately, you see people have these really rich faith lives in college. And once they leave college, it kind of all dissipates because the first parish they go to, they feel unwelcomed for whatever reason. It does the homilies don't speak to their experiences, which a lot's another great thing about college campuses is that a lot of times the homilies are really geared towards college students. So you have that
Mhm.
very specific audience. So you have that specific message to work towards. And
Mhm.
then you have the retreats and other things that are going on that are also feeding into that as well, where that structure is not present outside of that. Well, it is through other organizations, but again, it's harder to come by. It's harder to find your community in that. So we wanted to really talk about what that's like to have a faith life in the young adult time of your life when you're kind of out of college, still trying to figure out what parish you want to go to, get the courage to maybe go on a retreat center in town. Maybe you don't have those people that you then once had in college that are helping you go on that journey and show up to mass and show up to those retreats. You're really on your own kind of for the first time ever. And what do you do with that?
Mhm.
Or maybe you even go back home and you fall back into those patterns of maybe you I found this a lot for myself when I was in college and then did JVC and did graduate school and would come back home to my home parish that I grew up in. It was weird. It was a weird feeling because I'm a different person than those people remember me to be.
Mhm.
And I have all those experiences and that version of me who no fault of anyone else, but I'm proud of the person I've grown to be. And sometimes when you go back to those places that were sources of pain or discomfort or just bad memories, you fall back into that version of yourself that you're really not proud of.
Yeah.
And that adds another layer of complexity to the whole situation. So all of that to say, having a faith life, establishing your faith life as a young adult is really difficult. And we just wanted to talk about it and help navigate that part of your life.
Yeah, just put it out there.
Yeah.
I was talking to my coworker a couple of weeks ago, actually a couple months ago now, and she was saying how one of her former students came back and they were talking and they were chatting and she was like, how's the faith going? How's your faith life going? How's your spiritual life? And his response was, it's okay. I can't find a parish that I like. And she's like, well, what do you mean? And he was like, well, there are parishes that are catered toward, one demographic more than another. There's some parishes that only do Spanish Mass or only do Latin Mass. There are some parishes where there are more families, but I can't find a parish that is geared toward young adults. And
Mm-hmm.
she was like, "Well, you're not going to. Like, that's not the point of this. The time for that was in college,
Mm-hmm.
and now you're out in the world. And it's
Right.
important to, and I agree with this part of what she said, which is it's important to establish yourself in the community regardless of the demographic. If you find a parish that you or church that you think is beautiful and you like the priest's homilies, establish yourself there, whatever whatever that looks like for you.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that I do agree with him. Like I hear the ache that he was expressing of his strongest community in college was through campus ministry and through his faith, and that's not what he's finding in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
That I can relate to and that I empathize wholeheartedly with. Programming isn't the answer, I don't think necessarily, because we're adults. I mean, we're young adults, but we're adults.
Yeah.
We're busy. We have jobs, we have lives. However, the opportunity to gather together and share a meal, even,
Mm-hmm.
would be so greatly appreciated. But that's a demographic that is just not catered to because the people that would be catering to this demographic are us.
Right.
And I don't know if like I feel kind of weird being like, "Hey, cool friends, like let's go." Like no,
Right.
that'd be kind of weird.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is that there's especially where you and I are right now, Jill, in our age group, which is early 30s at this point,
Mm-hmm.
sad, is that we're in this weird split of like some of our friends are married and have been married for 5+ years.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are having kids. Some of them are still single, but like actively looking. Some of them are still single and are like, I'm not getting married. Like, I'm not anywhere close to being ready to even start looking to settle down.
Right.
So it is a larger demographic to cater to and to minister to
Mhm.
also.
Right.
That doesn't necessarily mean that it's not worth ministering to and that we don't
Right.
need that sort of ministry. Like my, even in Ithaca, we have two parishes that are great. They have a ton of ministry. And they don't really do a whole lot of like college ministry because there is Cornell Catholic and Ithaca Catholic. There are Catholic ministries on the campuses to serve
Mm-hmm.
the students. However, like I would, and maybe this is something I should just bite the bullet and do. I would appreciate like just people my age who share my faith and would like to get a cup of coffee.
Right.
But that's just not something you find really.
I find that to be crazy because there are young adults everywhere.
We're
They're all
everywhere. There are dozens of us. Dozens.
and right. And the fact that these things aren't happening, or I mean, I know that they're happening in some places. Some places really do have a great young
Yeah,
adult
I'm sure.
ministry going on. Like I said in the our first pod, that's how my cousin Matthew met his fiance through one of those things. But it's not the norm. And the reality of this is our generation is the future of the church.
Hmm.
And if we aren't forming ourselves to take on that responsibility, who knows where we're going to end up in 20, 30 years
Right.
from now. I think there needs to be more of an emphasis on supporting young adults throughout their faith journey so that when they get to the point where they're looking for this community or they want to dive back in and they get that courage to do so, that there's actually a community there for them. Because really, if you think about formation or even just mandated formation, you think of pre-Cana. So the course that you take before getting married in the church. You go to, at least this was pre-COVID, so a lot of it's now online, which I'm not going to go. I'm just going to say now before I finish my thought, I will not go into the
That's
complexities
a whole
and
nother
my ideas
podcast.
on pre-Cana because we will be here for 15 days at least. I have a gripe to pick with pre-Cana,
You
but
have a
we're
what?
not gonna do it. A gripe? Is that not the word?
Well, you have a gripe, but I don't know if it's a gripe to pick,
Whatever. I don't like it and it
a
annoys me.
bone to pick,
There we go.
or a gripe against.
Oh, okay. There's
I
so
like
much
gripe to pick.
frustration
It sounds like grape to
that
pick. I like it.
there's a lot of things happening that I could pick or not pick. And I will not pick Bricana because I was so excited for it and it was horrible. And we're not going to go into it. But I went to Bricana back in 2020 and there were at least 50 couples there.
Hmm.
Right. And they're all in my area because we were all in the diocese and it was a church not far. Where are they now? I'm looking. I'm looking. Where are you? Not at church. Don't see you there. No judgment to you, by the way. But my point is that they're there, and we were talking because of course my husband in Delaware County is like the mayor of Delaware County, saying it. Everyone know. We all know it's true. Just lean into it, Richard. No, knew half the couples there because he went to high school or whatever, because everyone knows him there. And half of them were saying that they were there because if they didn't, their parents wouldn't pay for the wedding or show up to the wedding or
Hmm.
be very upset about it. So again, that's kind of like the last push that you might have to get these young couples into church. And we dropped the ball. But again, we're not going to go there. Not today. Then again, it comes back around when you think of baptism, right? You have a child and now you want or may not want, again depending on how you feel about the church at that point, but then you want to get your child baptized and that's the next time you are reintroduced to the church. And that, if you want to continue to keep your child in the sacraments, then you have to continue to go back to church. But all of that to say, there's young adults are present, but I think it would be a really great thing to do to get them together more, get us together more, whatever stage of life you're in, but just to acknowledge that we exist and that there's what we're doing with this podcast, showing that there's many ways to live out your faith that maybe they were never exposed to before,
Hmm.
and just create that community. Because again, like you were saying, Katie, not to say that we all need to go to mass together,
Right.
but we can all go to the local bar up the street and have a drink together and talk, share a meal together, go to I know it'd be crazy that I'm saying this because I don't like baseball, go to a baseball game together, go to an event together, do things out in the world that we do, but together.
Hmm.
And the phrase coined by St. Francis that is probably he didn't say, but is coined to him anyway, is preach the gospel at all times when necessary, use words. Let our words, let our actions speak. Let God be present to each other through the way that we live our lives, through the community that we make with one another. And it's really tough when you don't find that.
I agree. And I think that there are very many reasons why our generation, millennials, are not certainly not the first generation to ever pull away from mass, but we have seen a larger percentage of our generation to pull away from the church and to pull away from faith.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, there's many, many reasons for that. I am not smart enough to or educated enough to name those reasons. The
Mm-hmm.
main one that comes to mind is the child abuse scandals that have been
Mm,
breaking since 2000. And like,
right.
that's not a great feeling. Why would I want to? And like, can't blame them. Why would I want to align myself with people that cover that up and that say that that's fine? And a lot of the tradition of the church, is seen as archaic by our generation.
Mm-hmm.
I get that too. Can't fault them for that either. Like it's just because it speaks to one person doesn't mean it's going to speak to everybody. Jill, we were talking to our friend Riley over this weekend, and she was saying we were asking for like ideas of what we should do for a topic, and she brought up the idea that you can have people in your life and friends in your life who are of course like different religions obviously and like no religion obviously, but even of the same religion but express it entirely differently.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that is something that we kind of forget. And I do this too, right? If I meet somebody and I'm like, oh, they do that, and that's kind of I don't know about that. Like I don't know. I don't know if I want to be their friend. They might judge me,
Mm-hmm.
or they might think I'm not a good Catholic, or they might, find out that I curse and be like, oh, you don't love God.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that, right? And that's 99% of the time not true about that person. I just jumped to this conclusion that because they express their faith in one way, they must be that way, or they must be a certain way,
Mm-hmm.
and are not going to like me because I express my faith in a completely different way.
Mm-hmm.
And what's so beautiful about our friend group, I think,
Mm-hmm.
all of us express our faith in very different ways.
Yeah.
And I would call all of us good people who love God and love, express our Catholic faith truly to who, or true to who, to ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I would just like to see more of that in the church, more of that diversity of Catholicism, like I guess.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Because there's so much that we can learn from one another.
Right.
Like I will never forget being in my year of service and with the women that I lived in community with and seeing for the first time God in nature,
Mm-hmm.
truly seeing God in nature and sitting and sharing a meal with one another being a spiritual experience. And my mind was blown.
Yeah.
And I still think about that all the time. And that's a reason why I love hosting people, whether that's for dinner, whether that's like overnight, to be able to share in community with one another in that way is so special. And I never saw it like that before
Mm-hmm.
until I was with people who found church in nature. And that was never something that I opened myself up to. And I think all of us could really deepen our faith and find different ways to relate to God. Or in those moments when we feel like God's not paying attention or trying to speak to us in the way that we want,
Mm-hmm.
being learning from other people and opening our eyes to different ways to live out your faith is really important and can be really helpful.
I do want to come back to that idea of, and again, we're not gonna, we do have an entire podcast planned to deep dive on pre-K. So
Oh,
don't be
don't you
sad.
fret.
Don't be sad
That
that
one
we're
might
not.
be like a 2 or 3 parter for the amount that we have to say.
We have opinions. Our friends have opinions. There are a lot of opinions, and everybody's experience is different. So don't worry, we'll get there.
Mm-hmm.
I would just like to emphasize and say what a shame it is that a lot of for a lot of people, we go through confirmation. And for some people, that's in the eighth grade. For some people, that's in high school, depending on where you are in the country, right? Maybe you keep going to mass because you still live in the house. And so your parents still bring you to mass. Maybe you go to mass through college. Most likely after college, people are gonna just stop going to mass, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even people like I know my students who were so involved in campus ministry in college, in high school, and are just like, yeah, no, I haven't been to mass in, a few years now
Mm-hmm.
because there's nothing for me. And then
Mm-hmm.
those students are going to go to pre-Cana someday because their faith is important to them, because their faith is important to their partner, because of whatever reason. They're going to go to pre-Cana. And that's the first time they are having any contact with the church in
Mm.
years,
Mhm.
depending on when they get married, right? And it's such a shame they don't that the church doesn't take more advantage of that, A,
Yeah.
and like really lean into that. But B, like that those are the opportunities. It's like, well, we'll see you when you want to get married. Bye. Whether it's graduating high school, graduating college, like really glad we had this time together. Can't wait till you
Mm.
get married
Right.
in 10 years. See you then. And the church wonders why we're failing.
Hmm.
The church wonders why people don't want to be Catholic, why people don't want to go to mass, why people don't want to become ordained or, sisters, or why people are quote unquote losing touch with their faith. And it's like, well, you haven't invested in them when they need you to invest in them, which
Right.
is right after college when the world is scary and new and everything's up in the air and you don't know where to go and you don't know who to turn to and you're
Hmm.
finding your people and you're trying to build a community. And the church is kind of just like, okay, whatever, just kind of ignoring you, or it feels like
Yeah.
it in a lot of ways, even if you are going to mass.
Hmm. And that's the other thing too. I even think about my parents. They were faithful people their whole life, but didn't really start to lead into their own faith and go to daily mass. My mom started working at the soup kitchen, all that, until they were much older and my dad was retired. And then he saw my mom going again, never begged him to come, but through her actions, through her decisions that I'm going to go, he was like, oh, you're going every day. You seem happy. I'm not doing anything. I can wake up and go with you. I want to spend time with you. And he started going. And he went every day with her and then created the incredible community that they had in Bayshore, the Rosary group. Shout out to all of you that all of my friends know
Hmm.
and
Oh
have
yeah.
heard of before because that you of all have prayed for us in many different
I believe in the
times
power of
of
that
our
rosary
life.
group. Let me tell you
Yeah,
something.
we all
Talk
do.
about big asks.
Yeah, talk about big prayers happening is that Rosary group. And they still, even though my parents live in North Carolina now, they still meet, they still go on Zoom and they pray. So shout out to the Rosary group, St. Pat's and Bayshore, all the people that my parents have met through that time. And I was in middle school, high school, so I was seeing that and being formed by that and by all the incredible people that they were able to meet through that. And I started going, and now I'm there with all these older people, and I'm starting to think, why? Yes, there's daily mass at 8 a.m. when we have work.
Yeah.
There's there's the rosary group at 9 right after that, still at work. Where are these groups happening at times that young adults can actually make it,
Hmm.
can go to these things? There's holy hour happening around me, but not at a time that I can go
Yeah.
because I have work. I Other campus ministers or people that work in ministry might be able to relate to the struggle of fine. We have a parish that my husband goes to, but I don't always go with him sometimes because I have work, which is mass at Newman. So now he goes all the time, and sometimes I can go with him. But now we're on an every other week schedule, so every other week I can go with him. But sometimes I'm traveling. So again, these moments for formation aren't happening at times that young adults can go. And I was, as you were talking about this, I was thinking about that, and that can even be another place to start if you're in a position where you are trying to get young adults to come to your parish. That could be a great place to start, or just not even come to your parish, but just have a presence of young adults in your community.
Hmm.
That could be a great place to start, is having things, offering things where we can actually go, because
Yeah.
I would love to have that. I mean, I have wonderful friends, and all my friends from campus ministry I'm still friends with in grad school and JVC, but it would be really cool to have my own rosary group that in my area that I could meet. And then like my dad would hang out with these guys until like all day. They would go across the street and then have coffee and pastries and all this stuff until whenever they felt like it. But yes, they're all retired, and that's not the point. What I'm saying is, it's that stuff is there for adults. For I'm like a fake adult, but like the other older adults, like the real ones. But I would like to have that. I would like to have my own little group.
The key is, and we learned this in campus ministry, right? It's the same component of campus ministry. If you want them to invest in you, you have to invest in them.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't re that facet of human nature doesn't really change. If we've been seeing for years that people below the age of 50 have been undervalued and in a lot of cases taken advantage of, what's what's going to keep us around? What's going to
Right.
keep us here?
Mm-hmm.
If the parishes want a more active presence of young adults, take a page out of campus ministry, invest
Mm-hmm.
in them.
Right.
If nobody shows up for the first 5 months,
Welcome.
yeah, just like
Welcome to the party.
maybe play around with the time. Maybe play
Right.
around with what you're offering. Maybe
Let them bring their dogs.
let them bring their dogs.
I'm more inclined to go to something if my son can come.
Don't like, yeah, don't make it so high pressure. Maybe it's too high, maybe it's just too high
Right.
pressure. Like
Right.
meeting people is scary and being it's a vulnerable thing to do to show up to a place where you don't know that other people will show up too. And so you're like, well, what if it's just me and Father Joe? Like I
Right.
don't want that.
Mm-hmm.
Make it less high pressure, make it less stakes or lower stakes. Make it a
Mm-hmm.
card game night. People
Mm-hmm.
love euchre. Millennials love euchre. That is the one thing I know to be true. Love it. Make it a euchre tournament. We love trivia. Make it a trivia tournament.
Trivia,
Who can we
yes.
sell this advice to? We're giving out so much good free
You know what?
advice.
Maybe this is what's next, Katie. Maybe we just answered our own question. Maybe that's it. Well, Catholic school didn't teach you ministry in springing from Catholic school. But that's the other thing, though. I don't want to sound like that we're sitting here ragging on the church in I mean to a degree, but also that I know that there are places that are offering this in place in around in
Hmm.
life in the world.
Hmm.
So maybe that's something we can offer on our Insta. Start compiling if well, we will offer this on our Insta if you reach out to us and say, I live in X place and I am looking for young adult ministry to get involved in. We will help you, try to help you connect to those people. And maybe you live close to us and then we can be that connection for you.
Hmm.
Or we can help research the areas that you live in and see what's around or whatever. I don't know the name of, or I'll do it. I don't want to volunteer
Or
for
maybe
you.
this is your sign to connect with your parish and say, hey, I want to do this.
Right. Be the change. Do the thing. Also, oh, look at retreat centers in the area. They have retreats going on all the time that you can be a part of. If you have never done a silent retreat, I cannot recommend that enough. I'm looking to do one myself
That
because
doesn't
they
really
are
lead to making
great.
friends, though, does it? I mean, I've never done a silent retreat, but I feel like that would be.
Well, honestly, I never felt closer to my JVC cohort than I did on that silent retreat but as an
Mm.
introvert, to eat a meal with someone and not have to speak to them, but feel their presence was life giving in a way that I can't truly describe to you.
That does sound nice, actually.
Yeah. Just literally being with other people with no expectation to speak to them is pretty great. Or any other retreat. You don't have to that's more of your own faith formation.
Hmm.
Not all young adult faith formation has to be done with other people. You can also work on your own faith formation as a human
Yeah.
by listening to podcasts like ours or I know again, hold yourself, reading a book or two on topics that you want to work on or want to know more about
Look at
or
you
finding an
recommending
audiobook
books.
because that's really where it's
There
at.
it is. There it is. Yeah. Okay.
Little steps, right?
There's another shoe. I was looking for it.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be with other people. You can do your formation on your own or tap into places like like the STM or whatever schools are around that offer free courses or like a free seminar, or like Catholic Leadership Institute sometimes has free talks that you can like hop in on. Follow those things on Instagram that you find interesting and see what's going on in the area. See what's offering that, because a lot of times you can just sit on a Zoom and listen, and that can speak to you in a way that maybe you need to hear that you didn't realize. So don't be afraid to put yourself out there and go and find the things that you need. I know it's scary, kind of like what we talked about last week with mental health and taking that first step when it comes to that. Taking the
Mm-hmm.
first step in anything you do in your life is hard.
It's
And
terrifying. Yeah.
we see that. But also, it's worth it when you're able to take that step and do the hard thing, because then you find really cool people, or you get to grow in your own self and can see how that helps with the rest of your faith journey when you work on it. When
Mm-hmm.
it's, our faith is a relationship with God. We are continually growing in ourselves and growing in relationship with God. And if we're not in our faith, like our brains and everything is a muscle, the more you use it, the more you continue to read scripture or do whatever it is that you do to grow in relationship with God, your relationship will get stronger. But if you're frustrated and stuck and just stay frustrated and stuck, there's no growth. So try to,
Did you hear that?
yeah, was that Sky?
Yeah.
You okay, Sky?
Sorry. Don't be afraid to.
So don't be afraid to start taking those steps to look for what you need. And we're here to help on that journey with you.
Well, before we wrap up, we haven't done a Lenten check-in for a while.
Yeah.
And and that's because
The struggle is
we
real.
are not perfect. We are human beings. So I'll start, Jill.
Okay.
I have not worked out this week. I was good about it last week. I was good about taking the dog for his decompression walks. I was good about I coach soccer, so that counts. It's a lot of
Yeah.
running after 3-year-olds. It's, 2 hours of running after 3-year-olds. So that
Yeah.
burns a lot of calories.
Yeah.
That counts. This week I haven't been as on top of it, and you can make all the excuses in the world for why, but it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
What matters is that I haven't been on top of it this week. That's okay. New dawn, new day, new life for me, to quote Michael Bublé. And next week I'll be feeling good. So
Yeah. So I guess that means it's my
it's
turn.
your turn, Jill.
I have done some things.
Okay.
I've also not done some things.
That's okay.
I also don't remember where I heard it from, but I was listening to something or I read something on the internet, a priest saying, when you're thinking about Lent, when we think about what we're doing for Lent, what the intention is behind it. It can't or it shouldn't be an extension of what you would want your New Year's resolution to be. That's not what
Sure.
it is. And I feel like I fall into that. I'm gonna own up.
Oh, me too,
I'm gonna
100%.
own it. That's what I would do in the past, where whether that's giving up a certain type of food, if I was like not gonna eat this or not gonna drink this, or maybe what I was doing with the journaling or that like 5 minute journal. Although I really do like that, but what the issue was is that I lost it and I didn't. And I temporarily misplaced the journal,
Uh-huh.
and I bought one for Richard. He never used it. So, and I have that one. I have it right here.
Who's
But I
Rich's?
didn't want to use it because it's for Richard 1 and 2, is that I already have a half written in journal somewhere in this home. So the first day I said, oh, okay, I took a picture of the first page of the journal. I have it in my phone. And I'm like, I will use this book instead. I did that for Ash Wednesday and have not done it again.
We
So
should know also that at the time of this recording, we're recording 2 in a week. So
this is
Jill's gonna be
February
gone
29th.
next week.
Yeah.
So this is February 29th. So it's not that bad. I mean, it's 2 weeks,
Yeah.
but like, you know.
Yeah, I think having all those things at the beginning was like I was excited. No, that just didn't work. But the thing that I have stuck with is the silence in the car. And
There
I
you
get
go.
a lot out of that. I really do. I really enjoy it for a lot of reasons. One being, only thing I will allow myself to listen to is one would be our podcast. That's what I listen to.
Quality control.
Yeah, as that on the car. I just also think it's such a really cool moment because I love listening to podcasts in the car. And then I turn on our podcast and I'm listening to us in the car and I just get chills. And sometimes I cry and I text Katie that I am crying and listening to this because I just can't believe we actually did it. Um, so it's a gratitude moment. But that, or if it's like when I drove to Ithaca, I did listen to podcast. I didn't listen to music though, the whole way there and the whole way back, which was
Okay.
4 hours each one way. But I listened to podcasts that not just like nonsense podcasts. Like I intentionally picked podcasts that I feel have a good message to learn from,
Oh,
or
good for
listen
you,
to
Jill.
the Divine Mercy or the Rosary. Those are three things that I allow myself to listen to
That's awesome, dude.
while
Why are you beating
driving.
yourself up? You're crushing it.
I'd have stuck with that. It has been really helpful. I really do enjoy that. And that's really attainable and is putting me towards the goal of, I'm having really great conversations with Jesus in the car. I
Good.
really am. And that helps. So I highly recommend that.
I'm glad to hear that, Jill. Well, thank you all for joining us today. We can't tell you enough how much we appreciate your listenership, your support, your kind words.
Mm-hmm.
Please rate, review, subscribe on Apple Podcasts. If you are interested in emailing us, our email is catholicschoolguilt@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram, What Catholic School Didn't Teach You, um, on Instagram. If you're interested in writing us a song, we're still on the hunt. Just a little theme song,
Jingle.
a little jingle jangle. I think that's it, Jill. You got anything?
No, just make good choices. Have a great day. And
We'll
we're
talk to
praying
you
for
all later.
you. Bye.
Bye, friends. Love you all.